I thought TikTok was supposed to be stupid. Is songwriting TikTok just pure? When it comes to songwriting, I am willing to try anything. Because what's the worst that could happen? You write a bad song and then you just delete it and nobody ever has to hear it.
All right then, keep your secrets.
So today I'm going to try some songwriting advice from TikTok. If you want to follow these TikTokers for more songwriting advice, I'm going to put links to them in the description just for you. Let's go.
There's a really cool technique that we can use that involves just swapping out one chord that belongs in the key for a chord that doesn't belong in the key.
This is goated advice. This is Andrea Stolp. She is a Berkeley professor on songwriting, and she gives great songwriting advice. She also has an awesome book about lyrics. And this piece of advice is clutch.
When we make just one of the chords in a 4-chord progression, it's opposite. So I'll say instead of minor, turn it into a major, or instead of a major, turn it into a minor. Suddenly we get a really cool moment.
There are a lot of great ways to make a song boring, but having a cliched and trite, boring chord progression is number one in my mind, because harmony is kind of a cage, and if you have really boring chords, there's only so much you can do with it. But I also don't like to go too crazy all the time, so having one borrowed chord in your chord progression is a great way to spice it up just enough. So I took a super simple chord progression and I just threw a little tiny bit of baby spice into it. So this is I'm just doing E minor, C, G, and then A major, which would be A minor. But we've swapped it. So it's just a minor 1, 6, 3, 4, but the 4 is major. So what that does is give us a little bit of a nice harmonic surprise, and it opens up the options for melodies. So that's a good one.
If you're hurting for lyric inspiration, you should try this cool method. It's called the Shy Method, and I found it on a YouTube channel called Songwriters Chop Shop. So the first part is S, which stands for simile. You're gonna make a comparison here by using the words like or as.
Like or as.
An example on the fly, I would say, you are like a disease or something like that. Next up is H, how. I could be like, you're like a disease destroying everything in your wake or something. Obviously this is like a cheesy example, but whatever, you get the idea. Then the last thing,
I'm gonna make a
kind
cheesier
of cop
example
out in the acronym in my opinion, but it's why. You're gonna explain why the subject is like this.
I'm never hurting for lyric inspiration, but I really like this idea of having a nice cohesive little 1, 2, 3 that really lays out the idea. I've seen a couple things kind of like this, and even if you're not doing this exactly or following any kind of exact formulaic pattern, which can get kind of boring pretty quickly, it is a really good idea to be kind of thinking about it like this. It's almost like micro storytelling. You have like a little beginning, middle, and end. All right, I need a simile. Like a raz. Like a raspberry, which is the king of berries.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
A prisoner sweet, fossilized by thorns, so hard to reach. Like a raspberry, a prisoner sweet, fossilized by thorns, so hard to reach. In case you're new here, I'm Trey, and here on the channel I cover all things songwriting and music creation related. If you like what I have to say, you might be interested in taking my songwriting course, which is called Complete Rock and Metal Songwriting.
Here's the exact way that hit songs are writing the catchiest melodies. It is called continuous syncopation. You simply syncopate your melody multiple times in a row for as many notes as your song is calling for. You can syncopate 2, 3, 4, even 5 or 6 notes in a row, and some hit songs are using up to 12 notes in a row.
Syncopation is when you just emphasize the offbeats. So if you're doing syncopated eighth notes, that'd be like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you're accenting the ands rather than the number beats. I love syncopation, and especially in like metal and rock, it is so badly underused. I hear an incredible amount of super bland rhythmic phrasing especially in heavier music, and we can't have that anymore. I call it mayonnaise rhythms because they're so bland and not at all spicy. Interesting syncopation is what makes for really good phrasing. What he's proposing here is kind of extreme. He's suggesting that you syncopate like basically all of the syllables that you're singing. Worth a shot. First, let's get some basic drums in here so that I have something to sing along to. I do a healthy amount of syncopation, and I think that you should too. I have not tried syncopating almost everything though. So let's see what that might sound like with our little raspberry verse here.
You're like a raspberry, a prisoner, sweet, fossilized by thorns so hard to reach.
Were you counting how many syncopations that puts us at?
You're like a raspberry, a prisoner, sweet, fossilized by thorns so hard to reach.
It's a total of 14 throughout the phrase, 12 in a row. These drums are not doing it. Let's see what else I can come up with.
Raspberry, a prisoner, sweet, fossilized by thorns so hard to reach.
This one, conveniently, is about bass.
If you don't know how to write a bass line, fear not. For I've been sent
I do,
by the
but
funk gods
I want you to
throw
show me
it
how.
to you. It's actually pretty easy. I'm gonna assume that you already have chords written. We're going to start our bass line by just playing the root note of the chord. The next step is to just add some octaves of the root note into that rhythm. Now the final step is to just add some notes walking to the next chord. So altogether we have this. See, it's really easy. We're just using mainly the root notes of the chord.
All right. This is a pretty solid and easy way to write a bass line for sure. All right, just move some of these octaves around. I think that might be a little bit too complicated for what we've got here, but the principle is pretty sound. Let's see what this guy has to say about harmonizing.
I feel like I always hear a lot of artists making really boring harmonies. Let me show you what I mean. Pulling me into just getting over it.
Yeah, so like thirds.
It works. It's a direct third, but it's boring. It doesn't leave any room for imagination.
Pretty nice though.
If you want to make your harmonies interesting, use the third as a reference, but play around with the way the notes go. Pulling me into just getting over it. If you find yourself getting stuck in a harmony, an easy way to do this is by using a modal and staying on the same note as long as...
What is a modal? I think he means pedal tone?
Here's all of it stacked. Pulling me into just getting over it. Follow if you care.
First of all, he's absolutely right. That kind of diatonic thirds, what's called similar motion, when the melody and the harmony line kind of mirror each other and move the same way. Direct thirds, as he calls it. It's very boring and super cliche. Like, it doesn't sound bad, but there are way stronger ways to harmonize a line. The problem with how he demonstrates it in this video is that we don't have any harmonic context for it, but usually the thing that's going to work with those pedal tones that he's talking about are chord tones. The reason that a note will work for such a long time over several different chords is because it's a note that is common to all of the chords that it's in. The problem with me trying this approach right now is that because I was so focused on the rhythm of the melody for this part, I've essentially written a one-note melody. So first I'm gonna write a better melody.
You're like a raspberry, a prisoner, sweet, fossilized by thorns so hard to reach.
So that's a much cooler and more active and interesting melody. So now using these pedal tones is going to work a lot better. Using single note harmonies against a moving melody line creates something called oblique harmony, which means that one thing is staying the same and the other line is moving against it. The first thing you have to do is find a chord tone that isn't the melody note and that also works with all of the chords you're trying to sing it over. If you don't know any music theory or anything at all, the best thing to do is just to sing a note that is not the melody note and see how long it works for. So I'm going to sing this note until it doesn't work anymore. Ah! That's a G.
Emo, 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 emo.
You're like a raspberry, a prisoner, sweet, fossilized by thorns so hard to reach.
So that gives us a 2-note total harmony throughout this whole line.
I'm sorry, metaphors are no longer the best way to level up your songwriting. It is phonetics now. Phonetics are in, metaphors are out.
I don't know about that, but overall, I like where he's going with this.
Phonetics being the way your lyrics or words flow as they're coming out of your mouth. I would say always prioritize phonetics even like over content in the song, like even.
That is a bold statement.
And I was struggling with this in one of my own songs. There's this line that goes, "Swear to God, I really took my time, spent 2 whole years trying to change my mind." And the 2 whole years, it has important like sentimental meaning to me. And I was thinking about, 3 whole years flows a little nicer there. And I was thinking like, okay, well, do I want to sacrifice that little bit of like the story that truly does connect to me over, this tiny little phonetic change? And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, Of course I do. Nobody's gonna know the story. As unfortunate as it is, I think we write these songs and we do these projects and think like, oh, there's like all these intricacies and it all.
Now he's hitting on an extremely important point, which is something that Andrea Stolpe also said in one of her videos, which is that as songwriters, we traffic in the truth, not facts. Like this guy is saying 2 years, 3 years. It doesn't matter to the person listening how many years it actually was. Changing that up, if it flows better and sounds better and delivers the idea better, that is absolutely worth changing, 100%.
Dude, bars!
Now, when he says it's more important than the content of the song, to me, the line is whether or not it changes the truth of the message. If it doesn't really have any effect on the actual content, the emotional content of the song, then it's absolutely fair game as far as I'm concerned. Change the words to sound better, 100%. There's going to be a whole huge chapter in my lyrics course that's just called The Sound of the Words, and I'm going to cover all of this stuff. And if you want to find out when my lyrics course drops, hit the secret link in the description and sign up for my mailing list.
If it's not phonetically sound, no one's going to listen to it anyways. So prioritize phonetics. Don't worry about content as much as you're worrying about the way that the lyrics slide through your brain.
There's always going to be a compromise between the phonetics and the message. If you're writing music, you really have to care about the aesthetics, and the phonetic part of it is the kind of the aesthetic portion of the lyric. And that's why with this kind of silly song that I'm using to like demonstrate all of this stuff, I went with Fossilized by Thorns.
What the hell is even that?
Even though it doesn't make 100% perfect sense, my initial idea was to say Paralyzed by Thorns because that flows really well, but it didn't say what I wanted to say, which was that this person is kind of a prisoner in this little cage of thorns. They're kind of hidden from the world. They can't be reached because there's a thorny barrier. So when he says that metaphors aren't the best thing, we still need metaphor. It's still abstraction and art. We're still saying something without saying it. So continue working on your metaphors so that you will always have something that sounds great to say the thing that you're trying to say, so that you won't have to like rely so strongly on just phonetics.
Quick tip for writing lyrics. Search for idioms or phrases in other languages. Translate directly. Use responsibly.
This reminds me of something that I've done a couple of times. Early on in my band In Virtue, when we would write songs together, we would all just be sitting around in our dorm in college trying to come up with material. And one of the things that we tried a few different occasions to just generate raw rhythmic ideas is we would take words or phrases that were related to the band somehow, and we would translate them into Morse code and then take that rhythm and turn that into a riff, like the foundation of a riff. So what this guy is suggesting is basically utilizing chaos to generate ideas. And if you aren't organically coming up with any ideas, if you're stuck somehow for inspiration, this is the best way to do it, introducing some element of chaos. If you're just like staring at an empty DAW or an empty page or an empty note, just waiting for the inspiration to hit, thinking that you're just gonna generate it and it's not coming, then I'm gonna need you to stand up and walk out the door and go do something with other people, because that's where the inspiration is actually gonna come from.
Here's a top hit songwriting technique for your songs. It's called the Fibonacci sequence. Hit songs are always using math and patterns to hook the listener instantly, and you should be...
I'm sorry, the Fibonacci sequence? Yeah, I really use the Fibonacci sequence to write my songs. I really like the way that it feels.
As well. One way you can use the Fibonacci sequence in your songs is to time certain sections of the song to show up at the perfect moment. This perfect moment is called a phi moment, and here's how you do it. You take the number 0.618 and you multiply it by the length of the song in seconds, and that will give you the spot where a unique moment should happen. And this is commonly where the bridge is placed, a synth solo happens, a tag after the second chorus, or anything interesting that...
Okay, basically he's talking about like the C spot in the song, the place where like a C section would happen, not a cesarean section. Writing a song is kind of like giving birth, so sure.
The listener hasn't heard yet. And this is the same technique that blockbuster movies are using, where they have a major event happen at the perfect spot. And here are some hit songs that are utilizing their special moments near or right on their phi moment.
I really like this idea. The way that he's delivering it is kind of killing me. These are the secrets of hit songwriters. So don't do math like this when you're writing a song, but the idea here is solid. What he's describing is basically just like good storytelling, right? You have to introduce the idea and repeat it and develop it a little bit and build towards a climax. And the climax has to be some kind of a surprise, right? It probably shouldn't be like hugely different from the other things that you have in your song because you want it to be an idea that follows naturally and something that you're preparing the audience for. If you're trying to like nail this exact moment mathematically within your song, I don't think that's gonna work at all. I think it would make more sense to do that with like bars in the song, not in seconds. There's plenty of math involved in music, but there's also math involved in like building a guitar. I don't need to know that to play the guitar.
Everything I know is a lie.
I recently talked about the song Peruvian Skies by Dream Theater, and I think that the guitar solo in that song is a great example of this fi moment that he's talking about, where it just hits at the absolute perfect moment and it elevates the whole song and everything just takes off. It's actually right at the end of the bridge, but they build right into it, and that's also an instrumental moment that lets you sort of reflect on the lyrics that you've just heard, and it gives you as a listener a little bit of space to absorb it with this amazing soundtrack. This one is from a TikToker named Vibe Machine. I like his stuff, it's good.
The reason your songs aren't memorable is because you're not doing something that most songs that people love do. It's called song math. I've never seen a video.
More math? I became a musician so that I wouldn't have to do math.
Really, I've heard it in a masterclass here and there, and I've seen certain people mention it, but I'm going to explain a little bit of it to you right now. Song math is as simple as this. Let's say you're starting a verse off. You want to sing a melody, and then you want to sing that melody again.
I don't even have to try this one because I already did that.
But you need to establish the melody that you are singing per section twice before you move on. It goes deeper than this, but if you simply do that when it comes to your chorus, or it comes to your verse, or it comes to whatever, especially when you have a chord progression that's changing under it, and it'll take that melody and the second time that it hits, it'll give it new context and it'll reharmonize it. It'll make it sound fresh.
I did that too.
And you can always hear this by listening to an acapella of a song and realizing when the melody's not moving. And then you just do that again and again and again, as many times as you can repeat it.
Whoa, is that the Fibonacci sequence he's drawing there? I'm not sure that doing something twice qualifies as math. It's not very difficult math at the very least, but I already did it, so I don't need to take this guy's advice any further. It is a great idea to really establish the melody immediately, do it twice, because the first time somebody hears it, they're like, okay, that's a thing. You do it again, they go like, oh, that's an important idea that's happening in this song. Hello. And if you think this is just for pop songwriting, you are wrong. Check out Angel of Death by Slayer, Auschwitz, The Meaning of Pain, Slow Death, Immense Decay. It's not like a melody per se, but it's the exact same concept. I am actually shocked that I am coming away from this feeling just kind of inspired, excited about new ideas, weirdly stoked on this dumb little song that I came up with just to demonstrate these ideas. Like, what happened? Not everything that they were saying is going to apply to everybody, and some of it's kind of like real beginner maybe, but all of it is just like good stuff to try. And like I said in the beginning, trying in music never hurts. Of course, these are all just like little things that can help. Nothing is going to take the place of really putting in the time and effort and learning a lot and putting in the work to become a better songwriter. But there are a lot of things that you can learn all in one place, like in my course, which is called Complete Rock and Metal Songwriting. You can check that out at the link in the description below. And if you want to learn how to actually finish your songs, then you're definitely going to want to watch this video right here next. And I'll see you real soon.